Good morning, everybody, and welcome to day 2 of the hockey conference hosted by the Center for the Study of Sport and Health at St. Mary's University. Before I begin, I want to acknowledge that St. Mary's University is in Mi'kma'ki, the traditional lands of the Mi'kmaq people. And I also want to take a moment, as we've been trying to do since yesterday, to acknowledge the 215 bodies of Indigenous children that were found in British Columbia. This morning we have our local hockey panel. I have assembled a very eclectic group of folks to talk about hockey in the Maritimes and slightly beyond. I'll quickly introduce them, and our panel this morning will be Q&A style, led by me. And if we have time, we will then open it up to our audience. While our guest speakers are participating, I ask that everyone else keep their microphone and camera turned off just to help conserve bandwidth and a bit of extra noise. So first, I would like to introduce you to Nicole Durant, who is from Nova Scotia. Nicole is a sledge hockey player. She has been a leader in the sledge hockey community. After Nicole is Ryan Francis, who is from Cole Harbour, Nova Scotia, and Acadian First Nation. Ryan is currently the manager of provincial outreach and community sport and recreation for the province of Nova Scotia, and has had extensive involvement in Indigenous participation in hockey throughout the Atlantic. After that, I have Serge LeBlanc from Sainte-Marie-Ken, New Brunswick, my fellow Acadian. Serge is the head equipment manager for the University of Moncton, Université de Moncton, Bag Bleu. Serge has been an equipment manager at the major junior level, World Juniors, and most recently is working with the Canadian women's national team, which has qualified for the 2022 Olympics. And we have Savannah Newton with us, who is from Halifax, Nova Scotia, a former Boston Terrier at the NCAA level, and presently the female high performance coach for Hockey Nova Scotia. And I also wanted to mention, to circle back to Nicole briefly, Nicole was involved in the diversity and inclusion efforts that have come out of Hockey Nova Scotia lately. So we have a very unique set of individuals here, but we have all found a way as a group to tie our experiences together and talk about them a little bit in order to paint a picture of not only our culture and our customs here in Atlantic Canada, but also how they all converge on hockey a little bit. So again, to remind you, I'm going to put out a question to the panel. If it's okay with you, we'll go in the order that I introduced you: Nicole, Ryan, Serge, and Savannah. And then if you want to converse a little bit, we do have time for that before we move on. So our first question is, tell me about your community's representation in hockey.
All right, so growing up, we were very much a hockey family. My brother played from the age of, he started on skates at the age of 4, as most Atlantic Canadians or Canadians do. I did not have hockey. I was my brother's biggest fan for the longest time. It wasn't until I was about 16 years old that Billy Bridges of the national team, his wife, Sammy Jo Small, came to do a female camp, and friends of ours actually had heard about him coming and having some sledges for people to try. So the friend said, bring Nicole out. This would be a fantastic opportunity for her. Growing up, I've only really had swimming to do as a recreational activity. And so then I had the opportunity that summer to go out and try sledge hockey, and they pretty much plunked me into the sledge and said, here are your sticks, and we'll see in about, however long you could last, which is very much how I've lived my life. I was born with spina bifida, which is a birth defect. So I am unable, I can walk with forearm crutches or a walker. As I got older, the wheelchair became easier, so that is what I use on a daily basis. So basically, I've learned to do a lot of daily activities on my own. So I tried sledge hockey, fell in love with the sport as I figured I would, and then lobbied for Hockey Nova Scotia to get the programs up and running. And it took about 2 years till we finally had a program up and running. It took a while it was under a minor hockey association to begin with, and then we eventually were able to expand it to just under Hockey Nova Scotia so that all ages could play, because under minor hockey rules, only certain ages could participate, and I was starting to hit that upper age limit starting at 16 years old. So that was that. And as we have gone through, the awareness of sledge hockey, also known as para ice hockey, which is the more common name now, has continued to grow. But anything we can do to help increase the awareness, especially at the grassroots level, is great, and it doesn't have to be for people with just disabilities. So that is a little bit of my story and how sledge hockey or para ice hockey kind of came to be.
Of course, I'm the first one to do that. Ryan, please go ahead.
Sure, I love that you put together a Nova Scotia, Atlantic Canada themed panel. And we just met a few minutes ago. And Nicole, I'll say that I was at that Billy Bridges and Sammy Joe small camp at the Sportsplex all those years ago. So Nova Scotia is small, and it's fun that we can connect that way. So I do remember that quite fondly. Congrats to, I guess, our Indigenous community's representation in hockey. I think it's first important to note that whether it's the origins of the actual creation of the game or the design or creation of the hockey sticks, that it's well documented the Mi'kmaq people had a role in. I just think it's important to note that the Mi'kmaq are a part of hockey's history really since its creation. And that's important to capture maybe in this type of conversation. For me personally, as a Mi'kmaq player, I grew up idolizing coaches and players like Ted Nolan, Jordan Tutu, locally here, Chad Denny from Eskizoni First Nation, which that may date myself, but he was drafted by the Atlanta Thrashers. And I guess today now we have players as well like Sonny Kabaddi from Member 2, Michael Sack, both who have recently played with the Halifax Mooseheads of the QMJHL, and players like Aaron Denny, who represented Nova Scotia at the Canada Winter Games and now plays at St. Mary's University. And so there's a rich history of strong Indigenous, specifically Mi'kmaq players in the game that should be celebrated and recognized. And so I do want to take a few moments just to do that. What I'll say, and kind of from previous roles that I have been in, we've seen that hockey is one of our more participated sports within the communities. Hockey is very popular, and there's a lot of Mi'kmaq youth who want to play hockey, and that's really neat. What I think is interesting is we often think of hockey as maybe the institution or the organization that is mandated to deliver hockey across the province. But what we see in our Indigenous communities, and this is sport more broadly even, is there is two distinct streams that I think we have created as a product of how the system has come together. And so we have mainstream sport, which is your provincial sport organizations, your national sport organizations, et cetera. But then we also have our community level work that may not be affiliated in any capacity with those organizations. And so I think it's important when we recognize involvement in hockey is not necessarily involvement in that type of organization. And so that's really important for us to distinguish and to create opportunities for our youth to continue to participate in hockey regardless of how they want to experience that sport. So again, what I'm saying is that hockey Nova Scotia, for example, is not necessarily hockey in Nova Scotia. And we see great participation in both of those streams. In our communities, we have youth hockey tournaments and adult hockey tournaments where our communities come together and play against each other. We have the National Aboriginal Hockey Championships, well sanctioned by Hockey Canada. It really ends there in regards to that type of relationship. So there's this wonderful opportunity for Indigenous athletes to work through and play with their peers, as well as be a part of that mainstream system. And we see participation in both. And so there's lots of work to be done in creating those more inclusive, welcoming and safe environments for our participants, whether athletes or coaches, and regardless of the way that they want to participate in sport. But hockey is a loved sport in our communities, it obviously has a deep, deep history with our culture and hockey, and that is something that will continue.
Thank you, Ryan. Serge, whenever tu es prêt.
Hi everyone, thanks for the invite, Cheryl. When I was born and raised in Sainte Marie, like we were taught at a young age that we're Acadians and what they went through way back in the 1700s, and like we are a proud nation of how courage and was involved in that. So involved in hockey when I was young, I was a big fan watching hockey. I never played hockey by myself, but we were a big fan and watching when I was young. I remember when Roland Melançon played in New York Islanders, won some Stanley Cups as a backup goalie to Billy Smith. I remember Charlie Bourgeois that came from University of Moncton, played a nice career in the NHL as an Acadian. So going to the University of Moncton is a proud Acadian school, over 50 years old, and always had that heritage part of the school. If you come to the University, you see the flags. Well, you see the Canadian flag, the Brunswick flag, and the third flag is the Acadian flag. So it's a proud school for Acadian. Myself, I'm a very proud Acadian. And watching hockey now, well, you know, there was John LeBlanc, there was Patrice Cormier from Capelé that played a little bit in the NHL, and then God rest his soul, Luc Bourdon was going to have a nice career. Played with me with the Wildcats, was going to have a nice career with Vancouver, and unfortunately had a motorcycle accident. And right now we're proud of Philippe Myers from Dieppe that plays with the Philadelphia Flyers. Going back to Université and my work job, all teams are known to that the Acadian culture is part of sports, and especially also hockey. I can tell you that on my helmets of the players, on the right-hand side of the helmet, there's the Aigle Bleu logo, and on the left side, on the hard side, we have a Acadian flag logo. So even all the recruits that come from everywhere in Canada, doesn't matter where, they know quickly that the Acadian culture is nice. And even our teams go to make like a yearly trip to Grand Pré, where in the deportation started. There was a third of the Acadian population that got deported from there in Grand Pré, and they go visit, and they have somebody in our bus that goes out in the church that's there and explains what happened to Acadians, and then eventually they all came back and established in New Brunswick, PEI, Nova Scotia, in the United States also. And they say the courage they have, and then when it installs to them, it brings the team to a family and combined to like one goal of courage, and look, we can stand together and try to be successful. So I love my job where I am at right now, and I love how the tradition of the Acadian culture is in.
Merci, Serge. Savannah, whenever you're ready.
Awesome. First of all, Cheryl, thank you so much for getting this wonderful group together. It's a pleasure to virtually sit alongside all of you doing amazing things in the hockey community. So again, thank you, Cheryl, and to everybody here tuning in. Thanks for valuing our conversation. My name is Savannah. I'm the female high performance coach at Hockey Nova Scotia, which in itself is a brand new role put in place to help the female hockey community in Nova Scotia, but hopefully in turn will help grow the game and expand the game in all of Atlantic Canada, just by increasing competition and just helping the girls get to the next level and grow the game from the grassroots level. So I'm very heavily involved in the female side of hockey. So that is my community right now. And the community's involvement in hockey historically has been, at one point it was non-existent. Females didn't play hockey. So back in the day, there was maybe, and even like, I'm 25, so 20 years ahead of me, there's very, very scarce amount of female hockey players even playing the game at all. So it was encouraging. Like when I came up through, there was a little bit more. And then now we have leagues, associations, just specifically for female hockey players to have that community and to have play with all girls. And so in terms of our involvement in hockey, it's rapidly growing and expanding, and we're, yeah, I guess we're definitely gaining ground and kind of expanding from what historically was a male dominated sport and kind of just making it more inclusive, and young girls are starting to get the mini sticks at Christmas, not just the boys. So the involvement in hockey is definitely growing, and I think it's becoming a much more inclusive culture, which I think is really great moving forward. So I hope that answers the first question, and I will yeah, that's all for me for the first question.
Thank you, Savannah. So before I move on to the second question, does anyone on the panel have anything they want to add or any comments they want to make?
I just wanted to comment with Savannah's work. As a female sledge hockey player, I did have the opportunity to go to a tournament, which was an all-female tournament with Sledge. And the difference, I play a mixed co-ed team as a regular experience, and it's a great experience. It definitely is amazing to experience that, as well as it's able-bodied players as well as people with disabilities. So our co-ed mixed bag of team is an amazing experience, but the chance to have played in an all-female weekend tournament and all people with disabilities was incredible. So the work with the female side of the game is, as a sledge hockey player, I can say it's invaluable. So I can only imagine what it does for just our female hockey players in general, especially in the high performance side of things.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I'll add to, like, I worked with Teddy Nolan, Ryan, and for a year, and outstanding personality, great to work with, awesome. I worked also with Chad Denny. He's quite a character. He was tall. His shot was unbelievable. And I wanted to mention also like Brigitte Lacquette, that on my first Pyeongchang Olympic team was first Indigenous player to be named on an Olympic like hockey team for sure. Being there when she got named and the reactions and like that, it was so special to be there at that moment. It was awesome. I wanted to mention also Sledge hockey. Go watch that live. There's always moments, like it's unbelievable when you watch that firsthand. It's, well, crazy. And then Savannah, like the work you do in high performance, obviously you're going to know Troy Ryan quite well. He's important, but Jill Sonia and Blair Turnbull that plays with me on the national team. They're going to open up grassroots level that the female hockey side is going to flourish, hopefully. And there's no ceiling to reach from there on. So I only wish great things for female hockey and then just to move forward. Thanks.
I'll just add too, I think it's really interesting to hear from these three perspectives as well, and just the importance and the value of hockey players and coaches having the opportunity to experience the sport with their peers. I think Nicole and Savannah, you have spoken to that quite a bit, and I'd say that is true in our Indigenous communities too, because of the structure of hockey, and I guess the mainstream system of hockey. If you are capable of registering for minor hockey, typically you're able to show up and experience hockey with your peers naturally, and you're able to see yourself in the coaches that you have. But in our communities, and I think Nicole and Savannah, as you speak as well, it becomes true too, is that when you don't have that opportunity, you don't feel like that space is welcoming or safe or fully inclusive. And so the value in that, and the value of having space where you can experience hockey with your peers, is so, so important.
I have to move us forward, but I'm crying. That was actually beautiful. I, like, as a sociologist, I get really fired up on the intersections of identity, and the fact that I have 4 very different people sitting in front of me who actually converge on so many things. And evidently, want to support one another so much too. And being a proud Maritimer, as we all are, I think that's beautiful. Yes, so moving on. I didn't expect this at all. So my second question, which is probably just going to make me cry more at this point, is tell me about what you're most proud of. We'll start with Nicole and go back through.
All right. So for myself, I have to say I'm most proud of the fact that we have sledge hockey going here in Nova Scotia, and it's continuing to grow. Sometimes way too slowly, in my opinion, but it is growing. And just to see the difference that having a sport that somebody can call their own can make in somebody's life. You wouldn't believe that. When I was 15, 16 years old, I was that shy child that would not say hi or would not speak in front of an audience of people that I didn't know. But then having hockey and having a community where I could grow and become more confident in myself has been incredible. And it's not only myself, but I've had a number, I can think of 2 young male individuals who play sledge hockey who are also very shy and quiet. One is about my age, and he would not speak up. He would not talk to anybody when he first joined. Within a year, he was joking and laughing and being part of the team. The other young gentleman that I think of fondly is quite a bit younger. He's only in his young teens, and he was very shy and quiet child. And over the last few years that he's played, I have kind of started, picking at him and doing just typical teen and team stuff. Nothing, nothing of the hazing or that kind of thing. Just good-natured fun. And now he's starting to instigate that on his own, which is incredible to see. He didn't have that confidence to be himself and to be that cheeky little young boy that he actually is inside when he was out public. So to be able to see that within the team community in the dressing room has been incredible. And that, I think, is probably what I'm most proud of, to say that we have a space that we can call our own, and what that has done for confidence of the players.
Thank you, Nicole. Go ahead, Ryan.
I was hoping Nicole would speak longer so I could figure out how I was going to answer this. It's interesting because this is in the context of hockey, but I guess what I'm most proud of is really far beyond the implications of hockey, but hockey, I guess, is its platform and why I have been able to experience this. But what I'm most proud of is definitely the voice of our youth. I experienced this through the National Aboriginal Hockey Championships. I think first as a player, I experienced the power of bringing together individuals who share a background in a culture, but are diverse themselves. And it kind of let me begin a journey of really understanding that and digging into that. And then coming back as a coach, which felt really full circle. I had that experience, but then I really got to feel that and to know the strength of our youth and the voice that they have. I have coached different levels. I see Jake Bullen on here, and we've had the great pleasure of coaching together at the minor midget AAA level. I've coached female midget AAA hockey, and this is not a reflection of those experiences, but I've never stepped into a dressing room like the ones that I have with Team Atlantic for the National Aboriginal Hockey Championship, because it's the only hockey experience where I've stepped into a room and I can feel the potential in that room and how they've built one another up, recognizing that they share a culture and a history, but again, are diverse themselves. And so they're leaning on each other, pushing on each other, learning from each other in the context of hockey, but even beyond that. And so when I reflect on that, that's certainly what I'm most proud of, because we are in a time of history that we need our voices to be heard. And if we can strengthen and empower the voices of our youth, whether it's through the platform of something as silly as hockey or other things that collectively bring together, then there's again such a value in that, and it inspires even me to find strength in my voice and in my footing as we move towards truth and reconciliation ultimately. And so certainly our youth and what they've accomplished in spite of a system is certainly what I am most proud of, and I look forward to being able to hear the voices of them as we move towards, again, like I said, truth and reconciliation.
I love it. Serge, go ahead.
So what I'm most proud of is I've never really thought about that, of like it's an ongoing career and I'm trying to do stuff as I go. But just a quick story. Yesterday afternoon, I did a presentation in my local school with grade 7 kids. So I did a full presentation and talking, and all eyes were interested on what I was saying. And then basically my main message was, I'm a proud Acadian, proud of where I'm from, proud of what I did and still doing. And basically because I'm a behind the scenes worker in hockey, that anything's possible if you try to build a passion. As we're Acadians, we're strong, we're pride, we love pride, courage. If you have a passion, it doesn't matter what theme, you can try to pursue it, try to put, if you have the right attitude, obviously. So it was fun to do it. But for myself, like every time I go to events, and I mentioned this to you, Cheryl, every time I go to events or Calgary or whatever it is, and I'm there obviously at the 15th of August, which is National Acadian Day, everybody knows around me that it is the biggest holiday of the year. So I'm very proud of that, very proud Acadian, very proud of my heritage, of me speaking French, my French compared to other Frenches. But I am very proud of that. And then I'll never leave that in the back end. I'm always a proud New Brunswicker, proud Acadian, proud Canadian, everywhere I go.
Thank you. And Savannah, go ahead.
Okay, I have a couple different answers to this question, but I'll start with the most cliche. I'm really proud of our community's growth in hockey. We've come so far, like I kind of touched on the first, in that first question about our community's involvement, and it has come so far from day one when the first hockey game was played in Windsor, Nova Scotia, to the time now we have with so many females involved in the game. I'm really proud of there being so many female role models for those young girls. Jill Saunier, Serge, like you said, Jill Saunier and Blair Turnbull are incredible role models in Atlantic Canada for those girls growing up. So just having that see her, be her element of the game is so powerful now. So that is my first way to answer the question, but there's two other things that I think I'm the most proud of in hockey, and then specifically the female hockey community, is there's a real, I think there was a stigma before, I don't know if stigma is the right word for it, but just like a body image issue with females. Typically, you need to be, whether you're male or female, you need to be strong, you need to be fast, you need to be like hard on your stick, you need to be aggressive, you need to be all of these things that typically sometimes females would shy away from or not feel comfortable with, not feel like it's they're allowed to feel like that they should be strong, like those kind of things. But I think, and even as like a society, as we shift kind of those beliefs, I think females in hockey or female hockey players that play the game that we all love, I think are just becoming more comfortable in their own skin, and just through hockey, becoming like strong members of community and understanding like, and even having Jill and Blair, like good role models like that, like being able to see that and being like, okay, she looks like that and that's okay. Like I can look like that too, and that's okay. Like there's not just one fit in the world. where it's okay to look like this and it's not okay to look like this. I think through hockey, we're just building such like a healthy culture for young girls to live in, and young athletes, and even older athletes, even myself. Like I feel that power, and that like being able to like grab hold of like just being proud of yourself, or proud of the work that you put in. Hockey players put in a lot of work, so you should be proud of kind of what's coming out of it as well, and just being comfortable in your own skin. And then so that was the first kind of way I wanted to answer. And then the second way was just the shift in hockey culture. I think I'm really proud of, and maybe that's as a hockey community as a whole. I think that we're a lot more inclusive and a lot, I just remember growing up, like with females in hockey or female hockey players, like there would be a game. And then I just remember male hockey players being around and being like, oh, it's just female hockey. Like, it's just like, that's just a girls hockey game, like kind of blowing it off. But now they're kind of like taking a second and being like, oh, okay, these girls can really play. Like, hold on a second. And then just having the support from the top down, I think is really cool and really powerful. Which it just from like people in big hockey positions are finally supporting this community and recognizing that all these young girls are putting in so much work, and they have things to be proud of, and they're finally getting, I'm proud of the fact that they're finally getting some recognition for it. And even at the national level, it's really gaining some ground. So that's what I'm proud of. I hope that answered your question. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to piggyback off of that a little bit, Savannah, I mean, so for some of our viewers from away, as we call it, the non-Atlantic Canadians Women's Worlds was just canceled in Halifax recently. And it brought up some important questions, right? About are women getting the short end of the stick? Is this more of a conversation about public health and the fact that the Maritimes have handled the global pandemic very differently than the rest of the country? And what can we do to make sure that women are being supported? And that goes right up to women's professional hockey, where we're having a lot of various conversations about that too, right? So I think it's a spot on topic, and I'm happy to see you point out that there has been progress when sometimes it is a very frustrating place to be. So thank you. I wasn't supposed to talk, but I just did. So does anyone else have anything they want to add?
I would just add that Savannah has referenced Jill and Blair, but I think it's important that we celebrate people like Savannah Newton and her background in hockey, and recognizing the investment that she's making into hockey in Nova Scotia. And so as much as you want to point towards Jill and Blair, I think we need to point towards Savannah too.
I have to add, thank you so much, Ryan. But I'm grateful for you saying that. But I also have to say, like, I do talk about Blair and Jill a lot, but there's so many amazing female hockey role models from Nova Scotia, and then from Atlantic Canada. Nova Scotia specifically, that's just because that's my wheelhouse. That's what I'm most familiar with. But from all across Atlantic Canada, like Brett Pettit, we have from here. She just won a national championship, NCAA D1, like one of the highlights of probably her life, and it was through hockey. So and then we have like Allie Monroe. She's gone overseas to play. We have Jen McCaskill. She's an incredible coach at 24 years old. She's the head coach of a female hockey team, a university head coach in the state. So there's so many young women doing like really incredible things, and I just think it's important to note that without hockey, like none of these opportunities would be possible. So really grateful for the sport, can't say enough, and just happy to give back.
Is there anything else before we move forward? All right. So we are at the point now where I'm happy to open the floor up to questions from the audience. You are welcome to use the hand raising function, or you can also send questions in the chat if you like. I'll do my best to facilitate both. You are by no means obligated to turn your camera on, but if you plan to speak, please turn your mic on. If there are no questions, I have about 150, so I will go silent for the moment.
I see a hand up.
Hi, I wanted to thank Serge for bringing up the Acadians. And just to say, down here, we call y'all Cajuns. And I didn't realize until you started talking about the national feeling of the Acadians. You know, we tend to just relegate them to history, but it's really been an eye-opener. So I wanted to say how much I appreciate you. Thank you, Serge. That's all.
Thanks for the comment. Yeah, there's Cajuns, there's all sorts of names that we've been referred to because we've been dispersed all over the eastern part of North America. So it's funny, you can always relay somebody to somebody else that has a background. So I'm definitely lucky to be working in this sport and keeping going. So thanks for the comment.
I want to jump in quickly, and then I have sent a chat to our next question asker. So for, again, folks who aren't familiar, the Acadians are French settlers that came from France to Canada. There's an entire story that I won't do justice to about how they cohabitated with the Mi'kmaq. The Mi'kmaq accepted them as settlers on their land. Eventually, again, I'm skipping over so much important history, but the British arrived and deported them. Some hid, some eventually came back, many were murdered. And the ones that ended up in the United States, typically we talk about Louisiana, are now called the Cajuns. So we're actually all related in some ways, not through a particularly happy story, but it's a history that we share. So that's why I come from, I'm half Acadian and half Jamaican, so my culture is very interesting, but it was important to me to have Serge on because he is an important member of the hockey community for the Acadians. And I'm sorry I didn't start with giving a bit of that history. All right, is my next person ready? Keelan?
Yes, I'm ready. First, thank you to the merci, and thank you to the entire panel and the host. I also found it very moving, very emotional, very inspiring. And I want to come back to a comment that Serge made when talking about the Acadian identity, and you mentioned that you speak Acadian French, and I'm very proud of it. I have to preface this with, I'm not Canadian, I'm from Chicago, but I learned French in Quebec, and I find the French in Canada very interesting. And I wondered, to what extent do you feel solidarity with the other French speakers in Canada, with the Quebecois? Is there solidarity between, because in a way, I mean, French speakers, you are a minority group, and is there solidarity between them, or are you really Acadian hardcore, and what's your experience with that?
Great question, especially like in the Quebec Major Junior League, when I work with the Wildcats going to play in Quebec. Our French is not the same as Quebec, and it was different at the time, and we're very proud, very our language, our the way we talk and everything like that. We're very proud of that, and we don't try to be anybody else. So at the start, when in the late 90s, early 2000s, there was a disparity about it, but as the history have come up to people teaching, like the Quebecers, they didn't even know there was French New Brunswickers, right? So. But now it's being educated a little bit more, and it's getting better. And we have a lot of Quebecers at our university, which is awesome. So I think it's getting closer to that. And French people are French. They try to be solid there, like you said. And and it's awesome to see. But I get along great, and it's fun in my work. Being fully bilingual is terrific, because when I worked on your teen level at both men's and women's, and French Quebecers, they didn't know English too much. Well, I was that liaison between both of them because I was fully bilingual, right? So it was awesome for me to get to help them to fully more understand the hockey language of whatever it was, French or English. They felt not respect, but they felt comfortable come to see me in that liaison. So we got a great partnership. Thanks for the question.
Interesting. Yeah, merci. Thanks.
Next, Giovanni, go ahead. And after that, we have a question in the chat from Jason. Gio, did you want me to get to Jason first? Okay, well, oh, okay, so Gio's mic isn't working. Let's see if I can. No, Gio, I have you unmuted. If I make you a co-host, does that help you any? Okay, so for the moment, I will get to Jason's question and we'll check on Giovanni after. All right. Jason can't figure out how to turn his mic on either. He would, okay, so I'll just read. Many academics say sport is trivial or superficial. How can you communicate to them that they have their heads up their derrieres? More seriously, how would you explain to them that hockey matters? So why is hockey important to the communities that are represented here on this panel? We could, if you want, we could go through the whole panel, or if you're feeling particularly energized to answer, go right ahead.
I just wanted, I think I touched on that a little bit in the beginning of mine, or actually more in the second part of the second question. For me, hockey has made a difference in my life. It has made me a more confident, included person in the community. It has shaped who I am and what I've become. Without having hockey, I don't know if I would have become a teacher and had the ability to impact as many little lives as I have. I've only been teaching for a few years, and I know each of the students that I've met and touched their lives, that has now shaped their lives to be more inclusive. And so I think, as much as it may be seen as a trivial or add-on or something nice to do, hockey is critical, or sport in general, actually, we'll even open it up to sport in general, is necessary for human development and learning how to work as a team, and that skills of cooperation, all those 21st century skills that we need our children to know for the future and to get jobs. So hockey and sport in general is important for those things, in my opinion.
Thank you, Nicole. Would anyone else like to add anything?
I can speak to that just quickly, because I think this question obviously gives you kind of an opportunity to really dig if you want to, but just to kind of echo what Nicole was saying, like, hockey isn't just a game. It's about when you show up at the rink, you're with all of your friends. Like, it gives young people the opportunity, whether you're Acadian, in the Acadian community, Indigenous community, like whether you're in the sledge hockey community, like in all these, or the female hockey community, like you come to the rink, you're with your friends, you learn from them, you grow with them, you struggle with them, you win with them, you experience all these different things. And then as you move through, you get an opportunity to lead and figure out how like you learn life skills, you learn discipline, you learn you have to be if you're 5 minutes early, you're late, if you're that sort of thing. Like there's so many different things that incredible coaches and mentors through the game are able to give back and teach people. And it's honestly, hockey's just a life cycle. And in terms of it being just something that I think kids need, and maybe even if it's not hockey, it's sport in general. Like there's so many things that you can gain apart from just, it's not just black and white. It's not just win and lose. It's not just that cut and dry anymore. It's character development and building strong people in communities that are able to be make an impact in their communities and in just in this world in general. So you can really dig on that one, and that's kind of just my brief overview. I could probably give a talk for 2.5 hours about how passionate I am about that question, but that's my brief overview.
I am going to go with poor host form and call out Ryan Francis, because I mean, Ryan has made it a career out of working in sport, not just in the Indigenous community, but at the provincial level for all Nova Scotians. And because of my prior fascinating conversations with him about the importance of sport and the role that it plays in our culture and in our public health, I would like to hear from Ryan.
Put me on the spot. I would say hockey in perspective matters. I think, and especially working in provincial government throughout this pandemic, it's been clear that hockey matters to a few select groups of people, and without perspective, when we say hockey matters, we actually do damage. But when we can say that hockey in perspective matters, I think we can focus on what Nicole and Savannah have really focused in on, and recognizing the value that sport can bring as a vessel to bring people together, to empower people to teach those lessons, and for them to see themselves in the future. I think of a story that came across my desk actually this week, and I help organize a hockey program for Indigenous girls. And we have a grade 12 student who helps coach that program, and her banner right now hangs within Savannah First Nation celebrating her graduation from high school. And the mother indicated to us and sent just a quick note about how excited this young participant in that program was to see that banner in her community, because so rarely, because of the structure of hockey, does somebody who participates from a community get to see themselves in their coach, in their leadership, in their environment that they have to go to and try to fit into. And so where hockey matters is creating those opportunities for everybody to be able to see themselves as a part of the game, and to see themselves as a part of our greater society in Canada. And sport plays a tremendous, tremendous role in doing that. And it's a way that we can focus on those outcomes in a really tangible way. And so there's lots of work around sport for social development in Indigenous communities at a federal and provincial level, which are really powerful, but it only matters if hockey is put in perspective and the power is given and the leadership is given in the right places. Hockey doesn't matter, in my opinion, if it is just held on to the structure that it currently exists in. And there's great improvements being made to build hockey to be more inclusive and be more welcoming, be more safe for everybody. But why it matters is to make sure those voices are heard and that hockey does become more inclusive for everyone. And so again, I think Savannah, you said there's lots of ways to dig into this question. And I could probably argue one way that hockey doesn't matter, and I could argue the other way that hockey does matter. But what I would kind of come to the conclusion is saying that hockey in perspective matters because of the things that Savannah and Nicole have highlighted.
Thank you, Ryan. Jason Blake, I hope that answers your question. Okay, Roger LeBlanc, where are you?
I'm here.
Go right ahead.
Hey, everyone. I'm also an Acadian. I'm a colleague of Serge. I love that guy at the University of Moncton School of Kinesiology. And I love Cheryl McDonald, fellow Monctonian. She's an amazing sports sociologist. So I just wanted to bring to the floor the importance of recognizing identity and inclusivity within hockey for vulnerable populations or minority populations. So I think Fred Mason's on the call as well. We should get together, Cheryl, and write up a paper on vulnerable or minority populations within hockey in the Maritimes or Atlantic Canada.
We have
There
four
are-
co-authors right here.
There are other, I'd like to bring to the floor that there are other minorities as well. I worked on a homeless project in Moncton in the last year, and there are enough homeless hockey players to make a team. So let's imagine what's going on in Halifax or in other big cities, maybe even St. John's. I'd also like to bring to the floor the number of LGBT hockey players within Atlantic Canada, probably enough to make more than a team. And so in my experience, I remember going to the first ever gay hockey tournament in my life, way back in 1994 in Toronto, and there were like 8 teams, and now there's over 20 teams at any given tournament. And what I'd like to share with you and ask the panel is the importance of inclusivity and identity and compatibility with your teammates is the fact that for once you can only concentrate on playing hockey and nothing else, and that your differences don't matter on the ice. So I'd like to ask the panel if you've experienced that, or comment on the importance of inclusivity and eradicating toxic masculinity within the realm. Thank you.
I'll start, Cheryl. Thanks, Raj, for the, I was going to mention earlier that my upbringing and my career in hockey helped me be educated in those vulnerable communities, LGBTQ, Indigenous, and it's only and I keep learning, and it's keeping progressing. So especially with my female hockey team and the national team, is like Raj said, when it's on the ice, it's one big team, right? And everybody's together, and I don't feel that other side anymore, because when we're in that familiarity around our dressing room or whatever, it's one big team, and it's awesome to see, because you can concentrate on just playing, right? So on the female side, I love it how it's going, how it's progressing. There's work to do on every. I love to see that more on the men's side. Hopefully, it's going to get better. But for myself, like I said, I'm constantly being educated on those subjects.
I'm going to jump in quickly because it is 11:55. I don't have anywhere to be for the next few minutes. So Giovanni's back. If some of you would like to stay, great. If not, there are 3 other panels happening. You're welcome to get to them if you like. But again, thank you to our panel for being here. This was more meaningful and fruitful than I ever expected. And again, I'll be hanging out, and if anyone else wants to, go right ahead.
All right. You guys hear me now?
Hi, Gio.
How's it going? Hey, I just wanted to say, like, it's great to see everyone talking about inclusion and design and everything, and really working towards making sure that youth and, people of all cultures and just all people in general are able to be part of hockey. So I coach and coordinate the Bulldog Inclusive Sledge Hockey Program in Indigenous, and our focus focuses on working with youth and making sure that all youth have that opportunity to be part of hockey and, you know, be part of that hockey family that Canada has really created, and making sure that, you know, our youth and advocating for all youth to be able to participate in hockey, whether it be sledge hockey or stand up. And you know, I completely agree with what Ryan was saying and talking about, you know, how we really have to focus on making sure that youth have those coaches, the coaches, the practices, you know, the ice availability, and, you know, just having that support there for everyone to be able to be part of hockey in any form that they can be, and really grasping like that whole culture of hockey. You know, it's not just getting on the ice to do random skating. It's, you know, actually playing the game, and, you know, that's what these kids want. They want to be able to play the game. They wanted the same thing any other kid wants. So it's great to hear that there's so many of you guys that are working towards that and advocating for people to be part of that. So you know, it's like me growing up, I was stand-up hockey player my whole life. Didn't know much about, you know, sledge hockey. You know, my sister played hockey growing up all the time, but, you know, never saw sledge hockey in the rinks, and I went all across the country playing hockey. So like with the sledge hockey program in Indigenous, we've just been focusing on like, how do we create that culture and create that sustainable program where like people are having those weekly practices, the weekly games, and really kind of, you know, falling in love with that Canadian hockey culture that we all know and love so much, and just all those experiences that you get from everything outside of hockey. So I really appreciate like all that you guys talked about, and really nailing down that culture in hockey and how there's so many people that need to be involved in part of that family. So I don't really think I have time for a question, but I just want to say thank you guys for all speaking today.